Welcome to the College Basketball Net Profit Show, Friday, January 13th. Ian Cameron, Connor Mack, ready to break it down for a Friday here in college basketball. Friday means Ivy League, Metro Atlantic, MAC. We've got a Big East game, a Big Ten game, a Mountain West game, but mostly Metro Atlantic, MAC, and Ivy League basketball taking over tonight on a Friday night. Connor, I was on with Jimmy the Bag earlier, and so if you watched, you already know what I thought of the Yale-Cornell game. That one's just starting. Did you make a move on that game?
I didn't. Just stayed off in the end. I kind of leaned over, but, Yale's pretty slow. Don't really do anything. Cornell up and down. Going through last couple years, they went over. I just couldn't do it, and it flipped. Cornell opened as the favorite, and then Yale was -1. I kind of think Yale in the end's the better team, but I'm off there.
All right, off the game. For what it's worth, I'm on the over in that game at 145, so that's what I looked at that one. Just figuring Cornell, the fast pace and series history was really heavy to the over, so that's what we're banking on there with those two. That one just getting underway. All right, the rest of the games still to come. Let's start with Kent State and Ohio in the MAC, Mid-American Conference. Kent State, 4.5-point road favorites, 142 the total in this game. I think Kent State's the better squad, Connor Mack, but Ohio, the reason I didn't like Ball State the other night when Ohio played them is because Ohio was off back-to-back road losses. It felt like it was set up nicely for them to come back home, get a win. Ball State maybe a little flat, and that's exactly what happened. And it was a very good performance from Ohio. And now they're a home dog here, and they might get a little positive bump from that. So I'm not going to lay the points with Kent State, even though I was kind of leaning in that direction. I'm off this game. I have no bet side or total, really, other than a small lean to Ohio in the over, but nothing substantial. What do you think here, Connor? Kent State, Ohio.
Man, Kent State, I like this basketball team. They've been really, really good all year long, and their defense is what really gets it done for them. Just the road games haven't been well. Saturday came out slow, 1-3, Miami O. At UTEP, struggled. If they struggled to score, they still got the win, 47-46. And now eke them out wins here. Ohio, one thing is the defense is what scares me in this game because they're not as good as Kent State, but not horrible. But I like how they played at home all year. This touched 5, and I grabbed it. Now they're all gone. That was like an hour ago, but still 4.5. It's not a crazy play, but I think Ohio here with the points at home, I think they cover. Maybe, I don't know if they win outright, but in the end, but I think they can get the cover here.
All right, good stuff. Next up.
And they lost to him last year, remember? So looking for a little revenge.
Yeah, I definitely have that had that in mind. Like I say, I definitely don't want to go against Kent State, but I don't feel this is the best spot or price for them. So I could see a situation where Ohio even wins the game, but especially loses by 4 or less, which is all that needs to happen here. All right, next up, we've got back to the to the Metro Atlantic, the MAAC here, Siena, Niagara. Siena 2-point road favorites, 128 the total. So Siena's a darling of mine. I like this team. They've got every opportunity to win the conference. They're very good at both ends of the basketball court. They've won and covered, I believe, 6 straight going into this game. So I ain't stepping in front of Siena. That being said, they've had difficulties with Niagara. They've always had a tough game from this team. And they've actually struggled at Gallagher Center. They've had a tough time here against the Purple Eagles on Niagara's home floor. Niagara is playing a little bit better themselves the last few games. Solid defensively as of the last few. There are still a couple injuries to keep an eye on, too, for Siena going into this game. You do want to be aware of that. I don't want to go. I'm not going against Siena. They've just been on a point spread tear. They've been on a straight up tear. I mean, they're just winning and covering, it seems, every game lately. But they have had some issues with Niagara, and it's enough for me to pump the brakes and stay off Siena. I lean that way, but I ain't going to bet it. Connor, what do you think?
Yeah, kept me off. I think Siena's the better team, in the end. And I think they could win here. But, man, something just tells me Niagara beat them down last year before that. And the games have been tight. These are 2-point games before that. Niagara at home has been a solid spot. When they hit the road, different story. So, yeah, I had to lay off in the end. As much as I like the Siena team, I'm off.
Next up here, we continue along. It is Marist and Canisius staying in the Metro Atlantic. Canisius 4-point home favorites, 130 the total. Look, these two teams aren't great offensively. I get it. But the thing I couldn't believe when I was capping this game early this morning, and I mentioned this earlier on Jimmy's show, it's unbelievable that when these two teams, especially the last couple of years, haven't been the greatest offensive teams, yet when they play each other, they just points happen. It's uncanny. I mean, last year alone, these two teams weren't great offensively. The total was in the mid 130s, and we saw a 78-67 game and a 71-70 game. Both games got into the 140s. The over has cashed 8-1 in the last 9 head-to-head meetings between these two teams. There's nothing right now that tells you that they're, offensively efficient enough maybe to be a team you want to bet over. Yet Marist has gone over in 5 of their last 6 games because their totals have been so low. Their offense has been a little bit better. More importantly, their defense has kind of faltered, Marist, in the last several games. Meanwhile, Canisius, they've been trending under, no question about that, 4 straight, and they've struggled to score themselves. The defense has been okay. But you get these two teams head-to-head against one another, and it's just been one over after another. So for that reason, Connor, I'm taking a shot with the low number over here with 129, 129.5. It's gone up a little bit. It was at 128 or so. It was 131. It went down to 128, and now it's being bet back up again. And that's the move for me here is over the number here with Marist and Canisius. What do you think here, Connor?
It's just a class, Marist, horrible offense, basically all in the 300s. Canisius defense, all in the 300s. So, and their offense is decent, Canisius, but all in the 200s. And Marist defense, all right, in some categories, bad in others. This game was just tough for me. But you mentioned the Dogs, 7-1, the road team, 6-2. The last few, I don't want to lay points with Canisius. So, if I had to, didn't bet this one, but I'd lean with Marist. But, in the short card, I already got a few bets going tonight. I don't want them.
Yeah, I mean, I like Marist when it was 4.5, 5.5 is actually where it opened. Then it got down to 3.5, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to take it at that number. I'd lean Marist though. I would take the point. I'd take the points anytime, and especially in this conference before I lay them. Speaking of that, St. Peter's and Quinnipiac. Quinnipiac, your 9.5-point home favorites, 133 the total in this game. I'm taking St. Peter's here. I know it's been rough sledding for the Peacocks, but this is such a bet on spot for them and a potential bet against spot for Quinnipiac that it's hard to ignore it. Quinnipiac's coming off a huge victory against Iona, 6.5-point home underdogs, and not only beating Iona, one of the best teams in this conference, but destroying them, 81-58. Now, they're playing well, Quinnipiac. 3-0 straight up, 3-0 against the spread, all 3 wins by double digits at Manhattan, at Ryder, and home to Iona. If they play at that level again tonight, they could whip St. Peter's too. Make no mistake about it. And St. Peter's has lost 3 in a row, including an overtime home loss to Canisius. That being said, you're now getting an inflated number, and you're getting a St. Peter's team that's dominated this series. This is another head-to-head type of situation where it just points to one side or one total. In this case, it points to one side. St. Peter's has won 5 straight against Quinnipiac, and they are 6-1 straight up, 6-2, 6-1 straight up, 5-2 against the spread in the last 7 head-to-head meetings between these two teams. So, a potential flat spot for Quinnipiac. You're, off your biggest win here in conference play. St. Peter's, I think, while they've lost a lot of the good players and key pieces from that team that made that great run in the tournament last year, their defense is still capable. They're still solid at that end of the floor. Offensively is obviously where the issues continue to lie for St. Peter's. You got to hope the defense digs in. And Quinnipiac, again, maybe their shots aren't falling. They're a little flat. That's what I'm banking on. But it's kind of a, hold your nose, ugly underdog situation. But I like St. Peter's here. I actually got it when it was 10.5, down to 9.5. So I can't be alone thinking that we might have a live ugly underdog here and a potential flat spot for Quinnipiac, laying a lot of points. What do you think here, Connor?
Quinnipiac up the huge win with Iona just seems a little bit flat, even still at home. This total, it moves up 1.5, and I was a little surprised by it, and I don't mind it. I know now it's come back down a little bit, not much, but you can still get a 133. St. Peter's, this team can't break 60. I know I had that team total under. I just looked on DraftKings. I find it somewhere else to look. I haven't looked yet what their team total. I'm sure it's right around there. But if you like them, then you got to like the under, unless this team all of a sudden gets hot shooting. So I like the under in this one. When these teams meet, these games are tight and low scoring. And their one time this went over the total, I believe their last 10 for St. Peter's, 70-60. So 130 total. And the total was 128 for Siena. They lost by 10. So I kind of lean the points too with St. Peter's. I'm going to stay off, but I'm on the under here.
All right, liking the under in this one. We stay in the Metro Atlantic here. Fairfield and Iona. Iona 15.5, 16-point home favorites. 137.5, 138 the total in this game. Obviously, Iona, you would think is going to play a lot better tonight after losing to Quinnipiac in their last game, but you're laying a big number. And, you're talking about an Iona team that, while they're very good, this is a big number to be laying in this conference. And I'm never comfortable laying this many points, especially in the Metro Atlantic. That being said, Fairfield did get bombed by Iona last year on this floor by 18. So maybe it is possible Iona runs them off the floor. But I do think Iona I think their worst offensive game of the season. Iona has not been held below 60 points until that loss against Quinnipiac. We know they're very good, balanced. They can shoot it from long distance. They can score inside. Very balanced team. I think they get back to a better offensive performance here. And the characteristic of Iona off a loss this year has been they've shot better in the very next game after a loss. I'd expect that here. That's why I'm looking more toward the total in this game. It's gone up. I agree. I think it goes over this number. I think it's a good way to go. It's actually a total I like quite a bit tonight. I know Fairfield in particular is not always a team you trust to go over the number, but if you actually look at their recent meetings, they have started to trend over because their offense has picked up, defense has fallen off, and I think you're going to see that carry over to tonight in this game. And I think, you're talking mid 130s. It can get up and over that number between these two teams. So with that in mind, Fairfield, Iona, I bet it over 137, I think, when I got it. It's up to 138, 138.5. So It's been a big move to the over, and I agree with it. What do you think here, C-Mac?
It's can they score? Yeah, Rob Freeney, I don't blame you. I'm not going to go back to it. They still haven't broke it, but I'm just going to be on the full game under. And then last one we talked about here, the totals for Fairfield have been so light, but they've been going over. I think they've been wrong on their totals. And Iona off the bad loss, you got to think they shoot it a lot better. It's stretched out a little bit too much here, I think, even though I think they could cover it. Maybe first half, pissed off team here, lay it with them. But that's where I'd look in this one.
All right, next up here as we continue along, we go to the Big Ten, Nebraska and Purdue. Purdue 15-point home favorites, 132.5 the total in this game. There's another one where I think the total's a little light. Over is, I think, worth a look here. They've adjusted the totals on Nebraska, clearly. I mean, this is now a total that is in line with the way Nebraska has kind of changed their spots this year. They've slowed the pace down. They're a better defensive team, but now they've adjusted to it, odds makers, because I'll tell you what, Nebraska-Purdue, it was not this total last year when these teams played. It was more like in the high 140s. So you're talking about a huge adjustment between these two teams from one year to the next. And when you actually dig into the matchup here, I understand why the total is the way it is, because Purdue doesn't really run up and down the basketball court either. But you factor in that they've adjusted to Nebraska's improved defense and that they play a lot slower. I look at the matchup, and the one thing Nebraska still struggles with defensively is 2-point defense. It really does struggle, which means they don't defend the interior and defend the paint very well. Well, guess what when that can be a problem? Defending the interior, if you're struggling defending the paint. When can that be a problem? Oh, yeah, when you're facing Purdue and that big behemoth known as Zach Edey. That's when it can be a very big problem. And I think that could be something that shows itself here tonight in this game with Nebraska and Purdue. So I think Purdue will score at will inside, and the efficiency will be there, which will help the total in terms of going over the number. Nebraska on the flip side, too, it's also worth noting they've given up 74, 79, 76 in their last 3 games. So that defense, for as well as they were playing, they've kind of fallen back and declined a little bit in recent games. And when you look at the Purdue side of the equation here, I think after getting held to 64 points in a slog of a game against Rutgers, 65-64, there was talk before the Penn State game that Purdue wanted to try to push the ball a little bit more, and burn teams in transition a bit more. If that game plan goes into play here tonight, then I think this total ends up being a little low, in my opinion, anyway. So I like over this number here of a modest total. It's 132.5 in some spots, 133, 133.5 at others. Shop around, make sure you get the best of the number, but I'm going to go over the total here. Connor, what do you think? Nebraska, Purdue?
Maybe. And Purdue, after having, I don't know, what was it, 6 straight unders, 2 just slipped over. Ohio State game by a point, I believe, and same thing with the Penn State 76-63. I think it got over by a point and a half, whatever it was. Nebraska 9-1 of the under. I think I've been on 7 of them, and I haven't taken over. I'm not doing it now, but you're right. Purdue should eat, down low, easy in this one. I'm gonna stay off this one. Purdue should win, and I know on Nebraska they just struggled offensively too much. 303 or 301. Offensively, they're only shooting 29% from 3. Man, that's ugly. You got to hit more than that. For me, 64% from the free throw line. When we take these big dogs, the points, I like ones that can score a little bit to maybe, backdoor cover. And so I'm off here.
All right, there we go. Off this game is Connor. All right, we go back to the Metro Atlantic. This is the last game from the Metro Atlantic here. Manhattan and Mount St. Mary's. Mount St. Mary's 6-point home favorites, 130 the total in this game. I think it's a Mount St. Mary's spot. I know they've been struggling mightily lately, but they're back home. They finally face, a beatable opponent here in conference play because Manhattan's no great shakes. I mean, you got a 6-10 team versus a 5-10 team here in this game. And when you look at Mount St. Mary's, they've played Niagara, Canisius, Marist, and they've been all over the place. Lost to Howard, lost to Robert Morris. They've really had a tough time. I don't want to lay 6 with Mount St. Mary's, but this is a spot in theory they could win because it's not been any better for Manhattan. They're 2-7 straight up and only 3-6 against the spread their last 9 games. Here's another offensively challenged team. In fact, both of these teams are just nightmarish offensively. Mount St. Mary's, 346 in points per game, 307 field goal percentage ranking in the country, and it's no great shakes either for Manhattan. They're both in the 300s in offensive efficiency this season. But I ain't laying 5.5, 6 here with Mount St. Mary's and their offensive doldrums. If I had to, I'd take Manhattan, but I don't like it enough. I think the under is the best way to bet this basketball game. Who are you going to trust to make shots? You've got 2 just anemic offensive teams. Like I said, they're both ranked in the 300s in offensive efficiency in the country. And anyone that knows college basketball knows that when you're ranked 300s in anything in this sport, that's bad, because there's 363 teams in Division I college basketball. So it means you're pretty bad shooting, and both these teams in the 300s in offensive efficiency with their rankings. So under 130.5 is the way I would go from a total standpoint. What do you think here, Connor? Manhattan, Mount St. Mary's?
Yep, that's where I'd be in this game. A lot of money on the over going through this earlier today. The only reason is these teams so bad offensively, but not crazy defensively, at times, especially Manhattan. And that's why I lean them with the 6, but they just haven't covered any numbers. And there's no way I want to lay, like you said, 6.5 with Mount here. But I like the under. I think it can stay under this total. Only thing that gets it is hot shooting. And these teams don't shoot it well. But you know how these small games can go. They can catch fire and get over. But I'd only be on the under.
All right, Villanova and Butler now in the Big East here. Villanova, 1-point road favorites, 133.5 the total. I would probably lean to Villanova here, but I don't trust them. I'll just say it. And I said it earlier today. I don't trust them. The DePaul game is supposed to be one of those classic spots for a team like Villanova of their pedigree, where they bounce back and they slam DePaul, and after losing to Xavier the way they did. And instead, they lost by 10. They weren't even close down the stretch. They lost by 10 as 6.5-point favorites at DePaul. This is a team that's clearly scuffling right now. They've been overvalued as well from a point spread standpoint. They've only covered, 3 times in the last 7 games. They've lost 4 of the last 5. The only win was against Georgetown. They haven't beaten anybody good lately in the conference. They lost to Xavier, Marquette, and UConn. The 3 better teams they've played, they lost all 3, Villanova. So they are not a team I trust. But at the same time, do I want to back Butler? The answer is no. Butler is not in good form right now either. And their only 2 wins were Georgetown and DePaul. And they've gone just 2-5 straight up and 1-6 and 6 against the spread in their last 7 games. So these are two struggling teams. The name brand team is probably the team you got to kind of lean to bounce back, that being Villanova. But that was supposed to be their bounce back against DePaul, and they got slammed by a very poor team. I'm not going to trust them tonight against Butler. And the one thing about Butler is they're not much better than DePaul, but they can play some defense at least. And whereas DePaul really doesn't. And Villanova couldn't score against that DePaul team. Now I'm going to trust them to score against Butler. No, thank you. So it's a pass for me. Anything here, Connor? I'd lean under, if anything. What do you think here, Villanova, Butler?
Yeah, but I'm not even going to mess with that. You're right. I guess Butler at home, they've been better to the under. Trouble scoring for Butler. In defense, they haven't been great. They hold teams, some of these teams like St. John's, you go down the list, mid-70s, I guess that's okay. But Nova, I got to wait. No way I'm betting this basketball team. Losers 4 of 5. They beat Georgetown at Georgetown, whatever that was, by 16. I got to wait and see it till they can get going. Maybe they won't. I think they will. Once Moore gets back with Whitmore, Daniels, maybe can get going. So this is just pass.
Yep, I think that's
don't bet it. I think so. Yeah,
that's what I was hinting at that earlier with Jimmy. Don't bet this game. It's like one of the easier passes for me on the board here. Eastern Michigan and Akron in the MAC. We've got Akron 13.5-point home favorites, 141.5 the total in this game. I grabbed the double digits here with Eastern Michigan, Connor. I just don't think this is a spot where you want to lay this many with Akron. I don't even think Akron's as good as they've been in recent seasons. Now, they've had some decent showings. They are 8-0 at home, but that's straight up. You know what they are at point spread wise in 6 lined home games, 3-3 ATS. So, they haven't been a covering machine necessarily here at home in every single game. And you look at Eastern Michigan, they've had some ugly results, no question. They've had a lot of losses, but they've been competitive in a lot of games. They had the one game against Bowling Green at home where it was really ugly. It got away from them 91-65. But really outside of that, Illinois State on the road as underdogs. They lost by 6. Niagara road underdogs. They lost by 7. South Carolina road underdogs. They lost by 10. Western Michigan last game road underdogs. They lost by 6. They've actually played more competitive on the road, Eastern Michigan, where some of their ugliest games, their worst games, have been at home. There's no doubt in terms of offense here or in terms of defense, Akron is definitely a lot better than Eastern Michigan. Eastern Michigan struggles at that end of the floor. They're much better, offensive team, Akron. But at the same point in time, defensively, Eastern Michigan, they're bad, but Akron hasn't been great at times and consistent at times defensively. And if you actually look at Akron offensively, they're only 313 with their field goal percentage ranking in the country. So you're talking about a team that is 313 in the country with their field goal percentage, Akron, laying 13.5. I get it. The reason they are is because Eastern Michigan's been giving up a lot of points in their games. But I think in this matchup here, you're daring a team that can go in scoring droughts, shooting the basketball to win by 14 or more. And like I said, Eastern Michigan's most competitive games lately, they've actually been on the road as opposed to at home. So I'm going to take the 13.5. It's a bit of an ugly dog, but I'm on EMU here, plus the points. What do you think here, C-Mac?
It is. Just EMU's defense is just horrible. Giving up over 80. Akron's got a solid defense. I don't want to, I lean the points. Obviously, Bates is the guy. I mean, it seems like he's got to score 20 to 25. But you're right. Going through it, even looking at it now, and earlier today, they've been decent on the road, and other than a few, have covered a number like this. But in the end, I'll be off just to lean to the points for me.
All right, we've got only 3 games left. Next up here, VCU Dayton in the A10. We've got Dayton 7.5-point home favorites, 129.5, 130 the total in this game. VCU in this spot, when you look at it, I think Dayton's a little inflated now. I get it. They're on this incredible tear right now. 8 or 7 straight wins and covers, 7-0 straight up, 7-0 against the spread. Let's be honest, though, especially the home games. I mean, Alcorn State, Asheville, St. Joe's. I mean, are you kidding me with some of these games? Like, they haven't played anybody of real quality during this run. They've ran it up against bottom feeders and cupcakes for the most part. Duquesne was a solid win, but Duquesne's a lot better at home than they're on the road. And they're still a team, Dayton, when you look at their overall profile going into this game. Offensively, they're still only averaging 68.5 points per game. They have been picked it up a little bit more on the offensive end in recent games. And defensively, again, their numbers look exquisite. I can't deny that whatsoever. Excellent defensive team based on the numbers, based on the stats. But, anybody's defensive numbers are going to look good when you're playing some of the teams Dayton has played lately, Fordham and St. Joe's and Alcorn State. And, they've just played some teams where, look, of course they're going to get stops and be able to smother them at that end of the floor. You're playing a team that's always been in contention here in the A10. You look at head-to-head meetings, and VCU's covered 4 of the last 5 and won 4 of the last 5 head-to-head meetings against Dayton. The road team was victorious in both games last year between these teams. Dayton won at VCU, but VCU won here outright as 4.5-point dogs, 53-52 at Dayton last year. And they were 4.5-point dogs in that game, and now you're getting them here 7.5-point dogs. So I find there's great point spread value on VCU. I think Dayton's a little overvalued now after feasting on cupcakes and soft teams and weaker teams. Granted, they've played well. I don't take anything away from Dayton, but they're facing, I think, the best team they've played during this 7-game stretch, and I think it'll show tonight. I think it's a competitive game. I like VCU. I also think the total's a hair bit low as well with Dayton's improved offensive game. And while their defensive numbers look good, they haven't played anybody that can like VCU. And VCU's not a great offensive team, but they're a whole hell of a lot better than some of the recent teams Dayton's played. So I definitely think the over's a little bit, or the total's a little bit low. I like the over, and I like the VCU side here catching the points. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, VCU has been scoring some points. The games have been going over. I think in this kind of the last few years, maybe. Dayton, solid defense. VCU, middle of the pack. But Dayton, this team's top 10 in a ton of categories. I've been shocked, and I should have been on them the other day. I talked about with Fordham, just smashed them, and I didn't take it. They've been rolling right now. The only thing is when I think of this basketball team, I just lay in the points like Virginia, defensive stretch, that key number of 7 we mentioned, college basketball. So in the end, I'll be off. But yeah, even VCU playing pretty good basketball. I think they've won 7 of 8. The schedule, I don't think it's been that tough, but yeah, this is a watch for me.
All right, so it's a watch thing for Connor in this one. All right, 2 games left. Michigan State and Illinois in the Big Ten, one of the bigger games on the slate tonight. Illinois 6.5-point home favorites, 137 the total in this one. Look, Illinois kind of gotten their game back together again. Remember, they went through that rough patch just about a week or so ago. They lost to Northwestern, blown out by Missouri. People starting to wonder what was wrong with this team. They had a home loss as double-digit favorites against Penn State, so they had their share of issues, but 2 straight wins and covers in bounce-back mode against Wisconsin and Nebraska. See if they can carry it over here. That being said, while they're playing a little bit better, Michigan State's won it 7 straight, 6-1 against the spread during that span. They beat Nebraska by 18, Michigan by 6, went on the road, very impressive fashion at Wisconsin, 69-65, won that game outright, found a way to bounce back in that. So, I think Michigan State's the way I'd have to go at a healthy 6.5, 7 points. These teams played last year. And look, they were Illinois was, I think, a little better last year than they are this year. They're still good, but I think they were a better squad last year. Well, last year, Illinois won by 5 and by 1 point in the 2 games. Yeah. Illinois won both, but they were by 5 points or less. They were competitive games. They were close games down the stretch. I think that's what we get here. Michigan State plus the points for me. And I think the total is slightly into the over with the total, but I like the side more. I think it's a competitive game. As much as I think Illinois is starting to get their game back again, you're talking about laying 6.5, 7 against a surging team right now, and a team that was right there with you in both games last year. So I would lean to the Spartans here. What do you think, Connor?
This total stuff, Illinois, the good wins, they bounced back the last couple. Yeah, it's been, 10 matchups haven't been more decided by more than 5. All the money here, kind of public dog, Michigan State, but this line moves the other way. But it's 7. It's touched 7 at spots. Now, I think it might be too much as well. Michigan State, to me, doesn't do a ton of things great. They've just been, gritty, Big Ten basketball. And Illinois has just been too up and down and inconsistent. So I lean Michigan State. This one I haven't bet, but that's just my lean as well.
All right, Michigan State plus the points for me, and I'll have a smaller bet on the over as well. Final game now of this Friday slate, and that's what I love about the Friday card. We can get through every game. We don't have to, do Q&A or any of that. It's just we go through every game, and that's that. Utah State and Nevada. Nevada 2.0 favorites, 143.5 the total in this game. This should be a good one here in the Mountain West, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific time, tip-off in Reno. Utah State coming off a dismantling over Wyoming, 83-63 in their last game. Utah State's been a nice over type of machine lately, 5-1 over the total in their last 6 games. Same thing here with Nevada. We're talking a team that has gone over in 5 of their last 6 games as well. So both teams have been getting up and down the floor. Both teams have had a great deal of offensive efficiency, which has been good to see. And I think you're going to see that carry over into this game tonight. Utah State will push the pace, 51st in the country in tempo, 17th in the country in offensive efficiency. This is definitely a team that has been filling it up here very well. Ryan Odom doing a nice coaching job. And remember, Ryan Odom is a guy that ended up coaching at UMBC for several years, including leading that team to that upset over Virginia, we remember. And when he was there with that team, they got gradually more and more of a higher paced team, and they still play that way. And now he's brought that here to Utah State. So they're in good form. That being said, these home courts have held up pretty well. Nevada 8-0 straight up. Nevada coming off a tough loss against San Diego State. But again, Aztecs, one of the best teams in the country. Prior to that, this team was playing good. They beat Boise on their home floor. They beat Colorado State on their home floor. It's a tough place to play here in Reno. I think it's definitely a Nevada spot. Even though Utah State's coming off a great performance against Wyoming, and keep in mind, Wyoming was beaten up to shit, tons of injuries for the Cowboys. So that takes away from some of that impressiveness of that Utah State win. So I like Nevada here, minus 130 on the money line. I think they get the home win, and I definitely like the over. I think it gets there, 143.5. Both teams trending that way. I think in terms of series history as well. It's trended over 5-1 to the over the last 6 meetings between the Wolfpack and the Aggies. So Nevada and over for me. Connor, what do you think?
Nevada's defense has been pretty good. Like, that's the only thing you can go by. Like, the history of these teams go over, or they 11-5, 10-7. They score 80. Nevada scores 73. Both teams dealing with some guys with injuries, role players, Jones and Himes. For Nevada, but I think Nevada at home. I think it's a bounce back, and this is just what I said with the total. I got to take the over. I know all the money's on it, and it really hasn't moved, which I don't love, but I think you just got to take it here. It's just one of these. And Friday night, late night, I got to roll with it.
Yeah, no question about that. By the way, too, for the Utah State side of things, Rylan Jones will miss this game. He's a bench guy, but he's definitely someone that still gives them some energy, gives them some punch from the reserve unit, and that is something worth keeping in mind. When you look at the matchup, too, I think another thing that could be pretty solid in terms of the Nevada side of the equation is the three-point shooting for them solid, and the three-point defense for Utah State is their one area of weakness. Will Nevada be able to exploit that? They might be.
You touch on pretty good free throws. Nevada, 80%, 7 in the country. Yeah. Utah State was 74%. Okay. Oh, the last game, the Illinois, that was another free throw I had written down. That team struggles at the line. I think they're about like 68% in the Classic 7. That's where it was iffy. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, no doubt. And if you're betting, and if you're betting totals in college basketball, you got to at least pay some attention to the free throw percentage numbers. You do, no question. It can burn you. You could lose a total by a point or two because a team goes 5 of 17 from the free throw line in the game. It's happened to me before, and it probably won't be the last time it happens to me. But yeah, you definitely want to be aware of field goal percentage numbers. No question about that. All right, there you go. We've gotten through every game on the Friday board right here on the Net Profit College Basketball Show. Hit the like button. We appreciate it. Don't forget, we got Dabby Cab, Razor Sharp, and Friends coming up tonight. Live bet stream during the Michigan State-Illinois game. That's coming up tonight, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, right here on Pub Sports Radio. We've got college basketball Pub Hub, the Saturday morning show, 10 a.m. Eastern, with me, Connor Mack, and Dabby Cab tomorrow morning. Got another live bet stream coming up tomorrow as well with Dabby Cab, and an NFL Pub Hub special Saturday edition of the show at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, right before Super Wild Card Weekend gets underway. So NFL Pub Hub, I will be a part of that. We'll get our NFL Wild Card plays in. Looking forward to that tomorrow, special Saturday edition of the show.
Shout out to Jack. Just joined us, new member. Yes. Become a member, $4.99. We appreciate it. Especially rag on us when we lose. Help support Pub Sports Radio, though, for making you some cash. Become a member. There he is. Shout out to our guy, Jack Rosenblatt.
Shout out for many reasons to Jack. Becoming a member is one. He's been a great supporter of mine for a while, and the channel. And he was going through some tough medical issues just recently as well, Jack. And on the mend, though, is what we hear, and feeling better. And it's great to see that. Great to hear that for our guy, Jack Rosenblatt. So good to see you in the chat, and hope you're doing.
This over's looking good, huh? Yeah.
Yes, it is. I got the game on in the background here. It's actually a televised game. ESPN.
I can see you watching it.
Yeah, exactly. You can see the screen in the foreground flickering. So there you go. Yeah, 39-29. So we're on pace for Yale and Cornell over the total. But I don't get too excited. I've seen 90-point first halves, and I've seen 50-point second halves. I've honestly seen that. So I don't cheer and get up and down with excitement until I know it's a winner. That's all. But so far, good start. All right, there we go. That is the Friday card. Best bets coming up in just a second, right after we hear from Manscaped and Southtown 101. All right, Southtown 101. When you're in San Antonio, Texas, stop in. Great food, drinks, live music, DJs, karaoke. Southtown 101 and Manscaped.com. Promo code PubSports. 20% off and free shipping. Manscaped.com. Promo code PubSports. All right, best bets to wrap it up for this Friday edition of the show. Connor, what do you like for best bet?
Well, if you listen to the show, you probably know everything that I'm on, basically. But St. Peter's, Quinnipiac under 133. I'll dare St. Peter's to make the shots. I got to in that one. That's it.
Oh, there we go.
Also, real quick, the game didn't tip off in 45 minutes. I mentioned that they use it as best bet, but I am on Ohio. Give me the 4.5. I think they can at least cover tight there at home against a Kent State team I like.
Like Kent State, just not tonight here. Ohio plus 4.5, and also that under with St. Peter's and Quinnipiac. Best bets for Connor Mack. I mean, Detroit Youngstown State was an easy over winner for me yesterday with the best bet. Let's see if we can follow it up with another best bet winner for the show tonight. I'm going to go to that late game, Utah State, Nevada, over 143.5. I like it. I like the side too, but I like the over even more. I mean, you got everything pointing to the over. Watch it be 68, 66 now or something, and it'll stay under. But, man, a lot.
Yeah, go ahead. Go.
But, yeah, everything, Connor, points to the over. Both teams are trending over. Good offensive teams, good free throw shooting teams. The over's 5-1 in the last 6 meetings, head-to-head between Utah State and Nevada. Everything points to the over. Let's see it cash in. Over 143.5, Utah State, Nevada, best bet.
I agree. Like I talked about, it's just, like, you got to go with that. I mean, if it's just doesn't happen. But the handicap to me, it's just over there.
Exactly. It is what it is. All right, great stuff. Thanks to everyone in the chat for joining us. Hit the like button on the way out. We are back tomorrow morning with Dabby Cab along for the ride as well for college basketball Pub Hub in the morning. Lots going on the channel this weekend, and make sure you, as always, become a Pub Sports Radio YouTube member as well for just $4.99 a month if you haven't done so already, hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. For Conor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Friday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. We'll see you again tomorrow in the morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, college basketball Pub Hub right here on Pub Sports Radio.